In this chapter, we're going to talk about communication in romantic relationships. We're going to start by talking about the formation and maintenance of a romantic relationship, then talk about the different kinds of love that we might experience, and then we'll talk about the social networks that surround the couple and support them, the 5 love languages that we might use in our romantic relationships, before finally talking about the dialectical tensions that we might experience within these relationships. So first, let's talk about the formation and maintenance of the romantic relationship. Love and romance can seem to take us over at times, and as with any other relationship, communication is the primary means by which we communicate emotion and love, and it's how we form, maintain, and end our relationships. And just like any other relationship, our romantic relationships grow and develop over time, but romantic relationships have specific stages that the couple will experience over time, or can potentially experience over time. The first stage of a romantic relationship is the dating stage. So a dating couple is a couple that is within the courtship period. This is the time that ranges from the first date that the couple goes on and could potentially last through several years. And after dating for however long the couple ends up dating for, whether that's a few months or several years, they can move into other stages of their relationship. One of these stages is the cohabitation stage. A cohabitating couple is a couple who has moved in together. So this couple shares a residence. They sleep in the same bed every night, or at the very least under the same roof, and they spend their non-working hours together and share responsibilities of the household, such as paying for bills and buying food and things along those lines. A couple could also potentially move straight into a partnered couple and cohabitate after the fact, right? These things are very fluid depending on the couple that you're talking about. But a partnered couple is a couple who has verbally, ceremonially, or legally committed to a long-term relationship. This can be a couple that has simply said to each other that they are going to be together forever, but they don't feel the need to actually get married. Or it could be a couple who is engaged to be married. It could be a couple who is married and has been married for several years. But that's a partnered couple. We're talking about a committed couple, a long-term relationship. Now, when it comes to romantic relationships, there are a number of different factors that can influence our selection of a mate. So these include family background, values, physical attractiveness, and communication styles. These are just some of the factors that influence our selection of our romantic relationships. Let's start with family background. Our family background manifests in the attachment styles that we've talked about earlier, including secure, anxious, and avoidant attachment. These attachment styles are formed as we are children, and they influence the adult romantic relationships that we have later on. Additionally, the values that we have, specifically the relationship values that we have, affect our romantic attraction. These often stem from societal expectations and norms, but they have an impact on who we choose as a mate. For example, in ages past, there was a preference for chastity, especially among young women, and, women were expected to be virgins for their husbands. Whereas today, the relationship value tends more towards mutual attraction and love, rather than like political advantage or anything along those lines. So our relationship values as a society have changed, and the values that you look for in a relationship might be different as well. In addition, physical attractiveness is an important aspect of mate selection. And that sounds really vapid and shallow, but we have these sort of universal basics for judging attractiveness, such as facial and body symmetry. And there's actually this idea called the matching hypothesis, which states that people with similar levels of attractiveness are going to pair together. And the judgments of attractiveness are also communicative, not just physical. But the matching hypothesis basically says that someone who is deemed quote unquote unattractive is not very likely to be romantically involved with someone who is quote unquote very attractive. And the matching hypothesis actually goes beyond this because it states that in order for a relationship to be successful, the people within that relationship must be able to function with each other on a day-to-day basis, especially once the initial attraction period is over. So if a couple has similarities in their preferences for fun activities and hobbies, this has been much more highly correlated with more loving and well-maintained relationships than couples who were vastly different in their preferences and their hobbies and things like that. So ultimately, the matching hypothesis says that we're going to look for someone who is similar to us in a lot of ways, and that helps to build a really loving and well-maintained relationship. But overall, as we were saying, romantic relationships grow and change over time, just like any other relationships. These are just the relationships in our lives that are more legally defined, especially when you get into the later stages of the romantic relationships.